Okay, thanks Chris, and welcome everyone. So yes, today I'm going to be talking about pasture dieback in Queensland pastures. History of dieback in Queensland. So dieback has been seen in our tropical pastures in recent years, but it has been seen before, so it has occurred before. The most recent and most severe situation or case was in central Queensland in the 1990s through to the 2000s, and primarily so I'll just put my camera on. Primarily, the actual pasture that was affected there was buffalo grass and some sabi grasses. Multiple studies occurred at that time, and there was no confirmed causal agent. So in recent years, we've seen dieback across our tropical pastures, as I mentioned. First seen around about 2012 to 14 and through until now. Many sown pasture species are affected, not just buffalo grass as in before, and a few native species too. So we're seeing most of our dieback occur in eastern Queensland, from North Queensland through to central Queensland and southern Queensland, typically in average annual rainfall areas above 600 millimetres. The area impacted constantly changes, and the estimates of area therefore constantly changes too, from about a number of hundreds of thousands of hectares up to more than millions of hectares. So we're seeing some pastures affected while other pastures are being regenerating if they were affected the year before. And again, at this point in time, there's no confirmed causal agent. I think I've gone back too far there. That's okay. Yep. Okay, so what grasses are affected in Queensland? So the predominantly most reported examples are buffalo grasses, bisset cripping bluegrass, a range of Rhodes grass, collivars, and the panics. But we also see a range of other species, tropical species affected too, including the pangols or digit grasses, sabi grasses, and so forth, as you can see on the screen there. The issue that we have, or the question that we have is, well, if we've got paddocks that are affected by dieback and have died out, what do we resow those areas with? What grass do we choose? Because pretty much every grass that we can just about name, not quite, but just about name, has been affected somewhere. Okay, so some quick photos of what dieback looks like in central Queensland in particular, in a buffalo grass pasture. Here's a picture here of an affected area. You can see a dead patch there on the left-hand side of the photo. Just one small patch there, basically. As it progresses, we see larger areas or whole paddocks affected. And then again, as the condition continues further and the pastures have died out, we see a range of broadleaf weeds coming in. In this case here, we've got some thistles. So what else are we seeing as well across Queensland? Well, again, dieback does start as patches and progresses into whole paddocks or whole properties. And the reason why I mention that again is because initially, yeah, it was in patches, but we're seeing now, as a number of years have progressed, that it's generally across larger areas or properties, as we see in those two photos there. Dieback can and has started underneath fence lines for some reason, and can also stop at fence lines too, as again shown in that bottom right-hand corner photo. We see quite commonly where there's a large biomass of grass or pasture, there's a high prevalence or severity or both of dieback. Legumes are unaffected, as is other broadleaf plants too. There's no consistency where dieback actually occurs in the landscape. So we've seen dieback at the bottom of hills, on the sides of slopes, on the ridges and so forth. There seems to be no consistency as to where it is or where it's not. And when we travel around the countryside looking at pastures affected by dieback, we see multiple things, multiple issues, and we sort of can call that a pest and disease complex. And there are numerous aspects of that, in that our pastures typically over the year induce or I suppose get affected by moisture stress, either too much rainfall or too dry. Usually it's too dry. Nutrient stress or nutrient tie-up. We also see a large number of fungal issues or other diseases as well in these pastures. And we also see the presence of many insects, including, or mainly, sapsuckers. We're also grappling with the concept about, what can dieback be caused by? And we also need to think about, well, what else could be causing these pastures to be falling over and looking not very healthy. So We believe that there are a number of other causes that can look very similar to dieback, and they need to be ruled out, as Suzanne mentioned earlier. So again, the early symptoms of yellowing and reddening, poor growth, are stress symptoms, and they can be caused by numerous factors. Patchiness of grass and dying out in patches can be caused by multiple causes. Colonizing of other plants, legumes and weeds and so forth, that can be caused by multiple things. So what sorts of things are we seeing in Queensland? Well, basically a range of things as listed on your screen there, including nutrient or rundown, drought, waterlogging, herbicide damage, soil variation, and so forth and so forth. So there's a range of aspects that can cause very similar conditions and similar symptoms, and they have to be ruled out before you can definitively say that you've got dieback. Has been some discussion about mealybug. So here's some photos of what the mealybug or pasture mealybug looks like, in particular with the adults and the nymphs and so forth. We definitely have found mealybugs in many situations across Queensland, but not all. Whether we're not there at the right time or whether the insects are below the ground at the time, I don't know, but they definitely are there. Observations in the paddock and also our control environment, a control experience have indicated that they can definitely negatively impact plant health, so make plants go yellow and red and have those early symptoms. But our research so far has indicated that these little fellows are not the direct cause. We've been unable to induce plant death with just straight mealybug alone. So what are we doing in Queensland with our dieback program? So we started the program in 2017. Field trial started in 2018, so a couple of years ago now. We've got 4 activity areas, including characterisation across the state, diagnosis of the cause or causes, identify effective management options. We've got an extension and an industry engagement theme as well. We've got a broad team. There's about 4.5 full-time equivalent staff across the state, spanning across the ologists that we call them, agronomists and so forth and so forth. And to date, all our work's been 100% Queensland Government or DAF funded. So what are our key messages so far? So there are a number of those. The first thing is that pasture dieback is a complex beast, and I think everyone who's worked in that space will realise that. If there's no plant death, or if the plants look red and a bit crook and so forth but haven't died, it's probably not dieback. So we would ascertain that unless the plants continue right through until plant death, it's probably not dieback. Again, there's no confirmed cause or causes at this point in time. For graziers, we're sort of telling them to regularly inspect pastures as they would do anyway through normal management, but in particular, if they're concerned about dieback, definitely ramp up that inspection. We're also suggesting to utilise pastures. Don't spell paddocks for long periods of time. Don't build up a big body of grass. Utilise it. But obviously don't crash graze it, but utilise it as you would do normally, but don't lock it up for long periods of time. If pastures are being affected, seek professional advice to start with, because there are numerous, it's a complex beast, as I've just mentioned, but there are numerous aspects to it. Therefore, determine the extent of it. Is it just a few metres or a few patches, or is it the whole paddock or the whole farm? Possibly graze the whole or graze the area affected as soon as possible to remove the available feed and monitor progress. But there's a range of aspects, a range of things that a grazier could do, and it comes back to that sort of situation and getting advice on that. If pastures are dead, well, I think from based on a number of experiments, including our own, we know that legumes are unaffected by this condition, so they would be suitable to resow into affected areas, also other suitable forages depending on your situation. And one other option is to possibly just let paddocks recover. So those 3 photos on the side there are all from the same paddock. First photo taken in March 18 with a few patches of affected, this is Rhodes grass in this case here, in southern Queensland. And by June the following year, so last year, completely wiped out. And then March this year, after some good rain, we've got some pretty handy regeneration coming back from seed. So in some cases we've seen that, but not all, unfortunately. So it's not a blanket recommendation to just leave it alone. But yes, some pastures have recovered with that intervention. And thanks very much for listening. So that's all I've got. That's a quick photo there of a drone shot of our field trials at Bryan Pasture Research Station near Gayndah. So thanks very much. That concludes my presentation, and back to you, Chris.